do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. I am back. Had an outstanding time seeing my family and all that good stuff. Got to watch my Arkansas Razorbacks take down St. John's with my dad and brothers. So, it was great. It's a great time. But we're back. And on Friday, before I left to go see my family, I made some comments about Purdue. Said that they would lose to McNeese State. That did not happen. In fact, I was very wrong about how that game would go. I liked McNeese due to the size and the athleticism and the pressure that they'd be able to apply to Braden Smith, and Braden Smith struggles with, larger, more athletic guys defending him. And I don't think I was wrong about that. I feel like I was just wrong about the outcome of the game. Purdue turned the basketball over a lot. 19 times. So many times they turned it over against McNeese. Braden Smith really struggled in that game. He committed 8 of those 19 turnovers, which makes sense because he has the ball more than anyone else on the floor. I thought McNeese State did an excellent job of not allowing for Braden Smith to be a major factor in the game. He only took 7 shots. Made 3 of them, finished with 10 points, 5 assists, and 8 turnovers. I think that if you had told McNeese State before that game that would be Braden Smith's stat line, 10 points, only 7 shots, 5 assists, and 8 turnovers, I think that they would have felt really good about their chances in that game, right? Because look, everyone knows this. When you watch Purdue play, there's 2 guys, Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn, a first-team All-American, and a guy who should have been a third-team All-American in Trey Kaufman-Renn. And when you tell teams, or if you could tell teams before games, that, hey, you're going to take either Trey Kaufman-Renn and or Braden Smith out, I think that they would feel pretty good about their chances of winning the game, because that's the goal when you play against Purdue. The goal is to take Braden Smith or Trey Kaufman-Renn out of the game, and McNeese State did a good job keeping Braden Smith's impact in that game to a minimum. They made Trey Kaufman-Renn and all of the other guys beat them. And for the first time all year, they did. CJ Cox played incredibly well alongside Braden Smith. He scored 11 points on 3 of 4 shooting. Fletcher Lawyer had 15 points and 5 assists. Camden Heide, only played like 18 minutes. He took 2 shots. He made both. He finished with 5 points. Miles Colvin came in off the bench, 8 points, 6 rebounds. Players not named Braden Smith or Trey Kaufman-Renn finished the game with a total of 44 points on 44% shooting from the floor. They hit 9 threes as well. And that has been the thing about Purdue all year. Can they get production from players not named Braden Smith or Trey Kaufman-Renn? Can they get CJ Cox to hit a couple big shots? Can they get, Jakari Harris off the bench to defend and score a little bit? Can they get Miles Colvin, a guy who went for 22 points against Ole Miss earlier in the season? Can they get him to produce off the bench? Can Camden Heide come in and hit a couple shots? That has to happen for them, especially now as they start to play against the better teams in the NCAA tournament. When the other guys for Purdue hit shots, they are always going to have a great chance to win, especially when Trey Kaufman-Renn goes for 22 points like he did against McNeese State over the weekend. 7 or 12 shooting, by the way. They didn't even need Braden Smith to outscore McNeese. Okay? Trey Kaufman, right, if you take away Braden Smith's scoring, they still would have won that game 64-62. The other guys for Purdue finally showed up. And looking ahead to Friday, when Purdue plays Houston, this has to happen again. Can the other guys for Purdue show up against a Houston team that is going to play, this big pressure defense, and they're very athletic, and they're going to be all up in your grill, and they're going to make things tough on you? Can the other guys for Purdue make shots again? Can Braden Smith do a better job of handling the constant ball pressure that he's going to be under against Houston? Because he didn't handle it very well against McNeese State. You turned it over 8 times. You can't do that against better teams. Okay? Houston is going to put a lot of size and length on Braden Smith, just like McNeese did. The issue is Houston's better than McNeese on the defensive side of the ball, and they are also a rather large team at the guard spot. They have one guard, that's CJ, that's 6'1", that's the LJ Cryer kid who seemed to not miss against Gonzaga. And after that, every other guard that they have is 6'3" or taller. And that is problematic for Braden Smith. And look, I'm not going to do the whole Braden Smith struggles with size thing again, because I see him to do that before every Purdue game. That's just kind of what it seems like. I think you've heard me do it enough throughout the season, and I don't think it's a secret. Everyone knows that Braden Smith struggles with size, length, and when other teams pressure him on the ball. Okay, I've talked about it a lot. It feeds into part of the reason why I don't think he's going to be an NBA player. Okay, so instead, I'm going to talk about what has to happen, or more so, what happened against McNeese State. Because McNeese State paid a ton of attention to Braden Smith. They were all about him. Okay, eyes on him. Okay, blitzing him when he was coming off screens. Whenever he gave the ball up, they tried hard to not allow him to get the basketball back. And when you do that, when you pay so much attention to one player, it opens up everything else. The reason why CJ Cox and Miles Colvin made shots, or part of the reason why they made shots against McNeese, is because of that pressure on Braden Smith. Okay, McNeese State, and what I'm assuming other teams are going to start doing going forward, paid so much attention to Braden Smith that everyone else got good looks. Okay, and those Purdue role players are going to have to knock down those looks again against Houston, because Houston, I am going to assume, is going to try to do the same thing that McNeese did. They're going to pay a ton of attention to Braden Smith, get the ball out of his hands. Okay, don't allow him to go for 20 points, because Purdue's only lost one game all year with which Braden Smith has scored 20 points or more. Okay, Houston is going to do everything they can to try to limit Braden Smith. Okay, if Purdue wins on Friday, I highly doubt it's going to be because Trey Coffin-Wren and Braden Smith both went for 20 and 10. They're not both. I guess it's not happening for both of them. Okay, CJ Cox is going to have to keep making shots. Camden Heide, who's been much better from the Big Ten tournament on, he's going to have to keep coming in off the bench and making shots. Okay, they did it against McNeese with Fletcher Lawyer not shooting it very well. 4 of 12 from the field, 3 of 10 from beyond 3-point range. He's a better shooter than that. He's probably going to shoot it better when they play. I guess they're playing in Lucas Oil on Friday, which sucks, but he's going to shoot it better than 3 of 10 from 3, and he's going to have to if they're going to beat Houston. That McNeese State game felt like a nice little prerequisite as to what we're going to see in this Purdue and Houston game. Houston's going to do everything they can to make things tough on Braden Smith. And if the role players for Purdue can relieve some of that pressure by making some shots, then they'll win. Trey Coffin-Wren is probably going to score 20 because he's Trey Coffin-Wren, and this is just what he does. He's been one of the 5 best power forwards in the country all year. As great as Houston is defensively, Trey Coffin-Wren is going to be good because Trey Coffin-Wren's good against everybody. The question is, everyone else. Can Braden Smith not turn the ball over 8 times against the ball pressure that Houston is going to put on him? Can the role players score enough? Can Purdue defend Cryer? Okay, those three things are what that game is going to come down to, and I hope they do it. I do. I like Matt Painter, very nice guy. Not a fan of the beard from Braden Smith, but I'll get over it at some point. And speaking of getting over it, Indiana, more and more Indiana players are starting to hit the transfer portal. Okay, we had a couple more guys hit it this week. Mackenzie Mbako joins Ja'Kai Newton, Gabe Cupps, and Malik Renew in the transfer portal. And I am of the opinion, or if I was a coach, if a guy wanted to transfer, sayonara, like there's no, I'm going to look, to see if I could go somewhere else. And if someone else is going to pay me more money, then see it. But if you're going to pay me more money, then I'll stay. Nah, man. As soon as you put your name in the portal, like the portal's one way. You're going somewhere else. You're not coming back. That's how I would do it. But, that's neither here nor there because I'm not a basketball coach. But Mackenzie Mbako is leaving. He's a super talent. I think everyone understands that, even if you don't like the way that he played defense. But the skills are clearly there. 6'8", can dribble, pass, and shoot. Guys like that don't show up very often. He is also testing the NBA draft waters. He'll get drafted at some point. He just has too much potential for him not to. Once again, guys that are 6'8", that can dribble, pass, and shoot don't come around very often. I don't expect him to get drafted this year, though. I think he puts his name in and is like, oh, wow, I'm going to be like a second-round pick. I'm good. Go back to college for one more year. That's what I think we're going to see from him. Part of that being that this is just a super deep draft class, one of the deeper ones that we've seen in quite some time. Okay, I'm guessing he'd be a late first, early second-round pick. That might honestly be generous, though, because, I like him. I like the tools, but I think that when scouts turn on the tape and they see the lackadaisical defense and some of the bad shot selection and Mike Woodson purposefully not playing him down the stretch, seeing him, not pay attention in the huddle before they play, on that final play against Maryland. Once again, that image of him standing at the free throw line with his hands in the air, like, what am I supposed to do? Will live rent-free in my head for forever. So he's got some issues. And because he's so talented, I honestly hate that he's not going to play for Coach DeVries because I don't think he's going to come back. I hate that he's not going to play for Coach DeVries and try to figure it out. Because, it seems like Coach DeVries wants to play fast. He said it in his press conference, the best time to score is within the first 12 seconds of the shot clock because usually the other team's defense isn't set. They're going to run it. They're going to shoot it. There's going to be so much more space, hopefully. The only good thing about Mackenzie Mbako leaving is that's one more roster spot for Coach DeVries to address with someone that he personally wants. So, very intrigued to see where Mackenzie Mbako ends up. He's a former 5-star recruit, so teams are going to be after him. Once again, the talent is just super tough to ignore. Okay, the other guys, I don't really care about him. Renew, see you later. Newton, you never played. He did, but just not very much. Gabe Cupps, I don't need you around here anymore. Mackenzie Mbako is the only one that I'm a little bothered by him leaving. But once again, it's really not that big of a loss because they won 19 games and missed the NCAA tournament. I think, you lose anyone from a team like that. Is it really that big of a loss? I would argue probably not. Speaking of the NCAA tournaments, the Sweet 16 starts tomorrow. We've got games here in Indianapolis starting on Friday. Purdue, Houston. That game's at 10 o'clock, which is just brutal. It's a brutal Friday night start time. But, go to the game, sleep in on Saturday. It'll be good. It'll be all good. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to rank all 16 Sweet 16 teams. And coming up at 11 o'clock, Tony East of Locked On Pacers is going to join the show, and where we're going to talk quite a bit about the Indiana Pacers. But the best teams left in the Sweet 16 when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice week. It's Wednesday. Oh, man. And the NCAA tournament, it's in full swing. Things are going pretty well. Sweet 16's happening. Arkansas Razorbacks 4 times in the last 5 years making the Sweet 16. It's kind of hard to complain. Anyway, so I wanted to rank the remaining teams in the NCAA tournament. Who are the best teams left in the Sweet 16? I did my best to not just go chalk. The goal is to do 16 teams in 16 minutes. That's probably not going to happen, but let's try it. The best team remaining is Duke. They are the best team. They were the most impressive of the 4 1 seeds against the 16 seeds. Okay, and they were the best 1 seed in the second round of the tournament. They beat Mount St. Mary by 44 points. They then turned around and beat, 9th seeded Baylor by 23. They have been the best team to start the NCAA tournament so far. Cooper Flagg looks like he never sprained his ankle. Tyrese Proctor may never miss another 3 again. They're big, they're long, they're dynamic not only on the offensive end, but also on the defensive end, blocking shots, getting steals. One of their biggest issues during the regular season was their ability to rebound. They've done a very good job of that in these first 2 games. Then again, it's Mount St. Mary and Baylor. We're going to learn a lot more about them in the coming days as the NCAA tournament continues on. Number 2 is Houston. Houston has looked spectacular. Like they just have. They play SIUE. They beat them by 38. I mean, just beat the absolute dog out of them. And coming into the NCAA tournament, a lot of people told me that Louisville was underseeded. And I think people got that wrong. I think that the 8 seed that was underseeded wasn't Louisville. It was Gonzaga. Because Gonzaga plays round 1, they blow out Georgia, and then they give Houston all they can handle in that second round game. And the thing about Houston that really pops isn't the defense, because we know that Houston is going to defend at a high level. The thing that popped was the offense and how great the offense was in that game for Houston. LJ Cryer goes for 30. They continue to be incredibly tough defensively. They shot 50% from 3 against Gonzaga, 36% from 3 against SIUE. If they keep shooting the ball like this, which they're very capable of, not 50%, but somewhere around 40%, they're going to be really tough to beat because offense has been where they've struggled these past few years. Number 3, third best team of all the Sweet 16 teams. I have Auburn here. People watched probably the first half of that game against Alabama State, and they were a little concerned. But after that first half, they looked really good. They obviously pull away from Alabama State, ended up winning that game by like 20. People loved Creighton after they thumped Louisville. They beat them by 12, handled them pretty easily, and that was with Chad Baker-Mazara getting hurt in the middle of the game. Johnny Broome only scored 8 points against Creighton, and they still won by 12. If Tahad Pettiford continues to come off the bench and be as good as he was against Creighton, then they're going to play in the Final Four. No way around it. Okay, because Broome isn't going to finish with only 8 points again. That is not going to happen. Can't wait to watch them play against Michigan, where they're a 10 or 9.5 point favorite. Number 4, I've got Florida here. They cruised against Norfolk State, but they really struggled with UConn. Of all the 4 seeds in the second round, I was least impressed with them. If Walter Clayton Jr. doesn't hit 2 what felt like near impossible threes late in that game, then they're at home. If UConn doesn't miss 10 wide open threes that they had throughout the course of that game, then Florida's probably at home. If UConn scores more than 1 field goal in the final 6.5 minutes of that game, then Florida's probably at home. And it wasn't like Florida played some outstanding defense. UConn just missed open shots. They were 8 of 29 from 3 in that game, which is uncharacteristic of UConn this year, especially with all the great looks that they had. Florida just really struggled to guard them off the ball. Good news for Florida, you're not going to play a team that runs sets as good as UConn for the rest of the NCAA tournament. And I think the entire, world got to see how great Walter Clayton Jr. is down the stretch in his ability to close games. He was a first-team All-American for a reason. Number 5, the 5th best team remaining in the NCAA tournament. I've got Tennessee here. Chaz Lanier has been awesome to start the NCAA tournament, averaging 20 points per game in his first 2 games. They controlled the entire game from start to finish against UCLA. They've defended better than arguably anyone else in the NCAA tournament in these first 2 games. They just looked great. This looks like a good, normal Tennessee team, very similar to last year, where Dalton Knecht was the guy. This year, it's Chaz Lanier. Okay, they have a senior point guard in Ziegler who can go get a bucket when he needs to as well. I really like Tennessee. The issue is they're playing Kentucky in the Sweet 16, and Kentucky has been one of the best offensive teams in basketball in the country all year. I have them 6th. I have them as the 6th best team remaining in the NCAA tournament. Their issue has been defense, and they've been much better on the defensive side of the ball coming into the NCAA tournament. And against Illinois, it's why they won. Okay, they held them to 75 points, which is a lot in college basketball. But Kentucky's going to score more than 75 points usually. They are the Pacers of college basketball. Or they remind me of the Pacers last year. Okay, the offense is magnificent. If you can play average defense, you're going to have a great chance to win. And that's what Kentucky has done. If they keep defending like this, and by like this, I mean they were 15th overall in their final 12-game stretch before that game against Illinois. Like, if they keep defending at that level, they are going to beat Tennessee. Number 7, I've got Alabama here. Alabama, another elite offensive team that's had to figure out the defensive side of the ball throughout the course of the NCAA tournament. Okay, and it seems like they've kind of figured it out thanks to Clifford Omoruyi. Okay, he's a big reason why St. Mary's finished 21 for 56 inside the arc in that round of 32 game on Sunday. And Omoruyi is scoring the ball as well, averaging 14, 8, and 2 in the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. 2 blocks, by the way, not assists. And look, they're heading to their 4th Sweet 16 over the last 5 years. This Omoruyi kid makes them just much more complete, especially on the defensive side of the basketball, because look, it's Nate Oates, it's Alabama. We know that they're going to score. The question is, can they get enough stops? And Clifford Omoruyi allows them to do that. Number 8, the 8th best team remaining. And I told you before the tournament started, don't bet against Chris Beard. He's one of the best coaches in the country. Okay? And now look, it's a little easier when you're shooting 49% from 3, like Ole Miss is currently through the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament, but they handled North Carolina. I know North Carolina made a push late, but Ole Miss just kind of went on a little run, and that was kind of it. It's like, who would have thought, North Carolina, 1 quad 1 win all year. And, they lost in the round of 64. What a surprise. Anyway, they then played Iowa State. They controlled that game as well. Whether you like Chris Beard or not, he's one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. And they're going to give Michigan State all they can handle in that Sweet 16 game because they're going to defend. And offensively, I feel like this is one of the better offensive teams that Chris Beard has had during his time coaching at any of his locations. Number 9, I've got Michigan State. I didn't think they looked great against New Mexico, who's excellent, by the way. The shooting, it's a little worrisome for me. They're still shooting poorly from 3. They were 4 for 15 from 3 against New Mexico on Sunday. But the offensive rebounding has still been really good. They're 19th in offensive rebounding rate, and they're 5th in adjusted defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. Okay, this feels like a Tom Izzo coach team. They're tough. They play defense. They rebound, which when you do that, you're going to beat teams that aren't as good as you are. But at some point, they're going to run into a team That is as good as they are. Maybe it's Ole Miss. I don't know. And you're going to need a little more than toughness and rebounding to win games. Number 10 on the list, one of my favorite teams to watch so far through the NCAA tournament, it's BYU. They hang 80 points on a VCU team that had this reputation as an excellent defensive team before BYU played them. They then turned around and played Wisconsin, and they hung 91 on them. They just outscore their opponents. That's what they do. It's like, we're just going to score a whole bunch, and good luck. Can they do that against Alabama? I don't think they will. We'll see. Defensively, they aren't great. They gave up 89 to Wisconsin. That's a lot of points. Okay, hard to have them higher when they're as bad as they are on the defensive side of the basketball. Number 11 is where I have Michigan. And I don't like that I have Michigan this low, but honestly, every team from this point down, it's like I'd like to have them higher, but like it's the Sweet 16. These are the 16 best teams in college basketball, theoretically. Number 11, Michigan. They just have found ways to win. It hasn't been pretty. You know, those 14 turnovers against UC San Diego almost cost them the game. Roddy Gale Jr. has the game of his life against Texas A&M, you know, allowing them to advance. And this is the beauty of March. The heroes come from out of nowhere. Okay, you know, Golden and Wolf, like they're still the head of the snake, but the guards have been playing better. Trey Donaldson, Namari Burnett, Gale Jr., they're shooting a combined 37% from three in their last 5 games. That's big for Michigan because we know that, you know, Danny Wolf and Golden, like the offense is primarily going to come from those two guys. But like Purdue, you need guys that can relieve the pressure. And Michigan has had that here as of late, and it's why they're in the Sweet 16. Number 12, here's what I have Purdue. It's hard for me to have them here because they beat a 12 seed and a 13 seed pretty handily to get to the Sweet 16. But the defense has been better. And that has been part of their issue this season, right? They go 3-6 in their final 9 games. They ranked 160th in adjusted defensive efficiency during that stretch. And it's been better to start the tournament. Again, not the best competition, but seeing some of the other guys, you know, the Miles Colvins, the CJ Coxes, stand up when Purdue really needed them to, because once again, McNeese in that game did a really good job of limiting Braden Smith. That gives me a little more confidence in them. Do I think they beat Houston? Absolutely not. But their role players play well again, then they'll definitely have a chance. Number 13, I've got Arkansas. We're finally healthy. Okay, Arkansas only has 9 scholarship players. And Adu Thero, he's back for the game against Texas Tech for the first time since December. All 9 of their scholarship players are available. Okay, Arkansas is as talented as anyone in the country. What a surprise. They're coached by John Calipari. Of course, they're as talented as anyone in the country. They just beat St. John's without their leading scorer. Trying not to get my hopes up here. If you can't see my hoodie, go Hogs, okay? Trying not to get my hopes up, but they can beat just about anyone in the NCAA tournament now that they are fully healthy, okay? I'm trying not to get overly excited about it. Gritty is correct. I am giddy about my Arkansas Razorbacks, but we'll have to wait and see. They play Thursday night, 10 o'clock. I will be up for that game, and I hope they win, because if they don't, Friday's show could be a little rough. Anyway, 14, Arizona. This feels very disrespectful of a team that I have thoroughly enjoyed watching in the first 2 rounds. They crush Akron. They then turn around and beat a really good Oregon team. Caleb Love is starting to look like the guy who won Pac-12 Player of the Year last year. He's one of the best players in all of college basketball. They're filling it up as a team. They hang 87 on Oregon. I love them so much. I do. And freaking Caleb Love lives to play against Duke. And but someone has to be 14th. And I just think top to bottom, they're not as good as the teams that I have ranked in front of them. Number 15, I have Maryland. Derek Queen hits, you know, the shot of the tournament so far. He's going to be a lottery pick. Did he travel on that game winner against Colorado State? I don't know. Don't care. The thing is, I don't trust the players around him like I do the rest of the teams ranked ahead of them. With that being said, they finished second in the Big Ten, so maybe that's a mistake on my part. Maybe I should trust those guys around Derek Queen a little bit more. They're playing Florida. That game's going to be brutal. Brutal game. But, I can't wait to watch it. And then number 16 is where I have Texas Tech. Haven't been that impressed with them. They barely beat UNC Wilmington. Didn't pull away until the final minutes in that game. JT Toppin is an absolute stud. Not at all related to Obi Toppin, by the way. But everything else around them just doesn't feel like it's been as good as it was during the regular season. Like Darian Williams had the game of his life against Drake, and if it wasn't for that, then they're at home and Drake is still playing, and Ben McCollum hasn't been announced as the head coach at Iowa quite yet. But it also felt like in that game, Drake missed a lot of the shots that they usually make, shots that they didn't miss when they beat Missouri in that first round. Okay, so that's my list, ranking the best to worst teams remaining in the Sweet 16. Number 1 is Duke. They're the best team. I feel very, very confident about that. And number 16, Texas Tech. Now, postseason basketball, not postseason. March basketball is in full swing. We're about to get more postseason stuff because the Indiana Pacers are going to make the NCAA tournament, the NBA playoffs, and they're rolling. They've won 5 in a row. A lot of those wins have been weird. Tony East wrote an exceptional article on it. He joins the show coming up at 11. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, though, Pacers, they've won 5 in a row. They will be the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Tony East joining the program here in about 20 minutes. It's going to be good because Tony East always does a really good job. And over on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to watch there. If you are watching there, I greatly appreciate it. Head over there, subscribe. We're almost at 250 subscribers, which is pretty cool. They're talking about karaoke in the group, in the chat on YouTube. And I have thoughts on karaoke songs. I have a go-to myself. I do. It's probably not very popular, but that's okay. I think that a good karaoke song, it's got to be popular. You can't be going niche on me, right, if you're singing karaoke. And it has to be a song that other people just naturally want to sing, okay? You know, Living on a Prayer, got to be in there. Some different Michael Jackson stuff. The issue with Michael Jackson songs is they're just kind of tough to sing. Me personally, though, I'm going to show my age here a little bit. Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus is probably my go-to because everyone knows it. It makes you want to sing. People hear it. They immediately know what it is. So, yeah, that's my go-to karaoke song. They're talking about that in the YouTube chat. So I figured I'd just weigh in on it really, really quickly. Anyway, the Indiana Pacers, they've won 5 in a row. They're rolling right now. 4 of those 5 wins, weird. Really weird. Okay, they beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota, did a big thing on it the day after because they were down 4 starters. No Siakam, no Halliburton, no Miles Turner, no Aaron Nesmith. Okay, Benedict Mathurin fouls out of that game. Andrew Nembhard gets tossed. and they find a way to win. Okay, Obi Toppin hits an incredible shot in the left corner, fading out of bounds, had to get it up, shot clock winding down, ends up being a game winner. Just an incredible shot. They win that one. Then they beat the Mavericks by 4 in a game in which they were down by 7 with a minute left to go in the game. That is an improbable comeback. If you're down by 7 with a minute left, you should lose that game 99 times out of 100. Then they beat the Nets in overtime. They then rematched the Nets and win by 5. A game in which they were up by 20 heading into the fourth quarter, the Pacers. And then the Nets go on this 19-2 run to open the fourth quarter. You know, the Pacers, they end up holding on to win that game. Then they finally played a normal game against the Minnesota Timberwolves on Monday. Tyrese Halliburton getting the better of his good friend, Anthony Edwards. Okay? They won that game by 13. Nothing crazy happened. Okay, they are rolling right now. Okay, and by that, I mean they're just winning games. Some teams are rolling and they're beating teams by 30. That's not what the Pacers are doing. They're just finding a way to win, which is always important. But it feels a little more important right now because there are 11 games left in the Indiana Pacers season. 10 after tonight. They're playing the Lakers at 7:30. And they currently have a 2-game lead over the Milwaukee Bucks for that 4th seed. Okay, they need to win tonight. Lakers, they have LeBron James back. They, like the Pacers, are playing for seeding. They're 2.5 games back of the Rockets for the 2 seed, and they're a game back of the Nuggets for the 3 seed. If you have tickets to tonight's game and you don't want to go or can't go, send me the tickets. I will gladly take them. LeBron James should play tonight. Luka Doncic should also play tonight. Okay, the Lakers have come back down to earth a little bit since acquiring Luka Doncic. Okay, they won 8 in a row, like right after they made the trade. Since winning those 8 in a row, they're 3-7 in their last 10, and they've lost 3 games in a row. LeBron's been out for some of those games. He injured his groin, so that happened. But this is a game tonight for Miles Turner. Miles Turner should dominate the basketball game tonight. Jackson Hayes is the Lakers starting center. He is not a starting caliber center in the NBA. He's a guy who should play like 10 to 15 minutes a night. Ridger, that is an excellent comment. YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, head over there. Subscribe. Ridger chiming in saying, I'm going to the game tonight. I'll be the one in the Pacers jersey. Ain't that the truth? Jeez. Oh, that's good, Ridger. Anyway, Jackson Hayes, he can't guard Miles Turner. He is inferior to Miles Turner in every way, shape, and form. The Lakers are also going to try to get away with playing Rui Hachimura at the center position. Pacers cannot allow them to do that if they want to win the game. So big game tonight, ESPN, prime time, 7:30. Set your clocks, watch the game. It's going to be magnificent. And then don't watch the halftime show because the halftime show on ESPN is terrible. Anyway, big game tonight for the Pacers. They need it. Okay, they're trying to maintain pace with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Detroit Pistons, both teams that are 2 games back of them in the standings, trying to hold on to that 4th seed. Okay. The Milwaukee Bucks, I think they play tonight. Let me double check. No, that was last night. Silly me. They do play tonight. They're playing the Nuggets tonight at 9:00. Okay. The Pistons, they are off tonight. They were off last night as well. They only have 9 games left, whereas the Pacers and Bucks both have 11. But I do feel pretty confident in saying that the Indiana Pacers are going to be the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. And part of that has to do with Tyrese Halliburton, and we're going to talk to Tony East about all this coming up here in about 10 minutes. But Tyrese Halliburton's been outstanding since the All-Star break. Averaging, 22 points per game on 70% true shooting with an assist-to-turnover ratio of 11-1. The Pacers have won 75% of the games that he's played in since the All-Star break. And the Pacers overall are 29-11 in their last 40 games. They are playing as well as anyone right now. Well, not anyone. As well as anyone not named the Thunder, Celtics, or Cavaliers. And I expect this to continue because they still have something to play for. Playoff seeding. You'd rather be the 4 than the 5 seed because obviously you want home court advantage and all those things in the first round. Their strength of schedule for the rest of the season is 17th in the league with 11 games to go. So they have the 17th toughest schedule remaining with 11 games left. They do have some tough opponents in there. They play the Thunder once. They still have to play Cleveland twice. There's a little caveat on that one, though. They still have the Nuggets and the Lakers tonight. Those are their 5 toughest games remaining of their 11. Now, the good news is when they do play Cleveland, they play the Cavaliers their 80th and 82nd games of the year. By that point, the Cleveland Cavaliers should have the 1 seed locked up. Do we see Donovan Mitchell play in that game? Probably not. Do we see Garland? Even if we do see, in Mobley, even if we do see the Cavaliers' better players appear in those games, it's just not going to be the same because they're going to be trying to get ready, trying to get their bodies ready for the playoffs with that number 1 overall seed. Okay? So while that game will be tough because the Cavaliers are incredibly deep, it's why you could argue they're the best team in the NBA. I don't think they are, but they could be. The Cavaliers could be resting players by the time they play the Pacers to close out the season. Now, the Pacers are also playing some teams that are bad. They're playing the tanking Wizards twice. They're playing the Jazz, who are tanking. They're going to play the Hornets, who are tanking. They're going to play the Magic, who are a playing team. They're actually probably a little tougher than people realize. And the Kings, who, that Zach LaVine trade looked great. But it's fine now. It's not really great. Okay, so the strength of schedule isn't super tough. And even some of the tougher games on their schedule, it's advantageous to the Pacers given how seeding is going to shake out, that those teams could be resting their players. Once again, they currently have a 2-game lead over the Bucks, who hold the head-to-head tiebreaker. Bad news for the Bucks. Damian Lillard is out indefinitely with blood clots in his calf. And it sucks. It's great for the Pacers. It is. Okay? They're probably going to grab the 4 seed because Damian Lillard isn't playing. Okay? But at the same time, the NBA is about stars. And, you're the Bucks. You make this trade for Damian Lillard to pair him with Giannis because that's a pretty dynamic duo, especially when you look at the playoffs and who's going to be, like that's a tough, that's a tough pair to have to deal with. And for the second year in a row, it looks like they're going to be missing one of those guys in the playoffs. That's what it looks like. And the good news for the Bucks, schedule's not too bad. They're 21st in strength of schedule currently. They have 11 games left. Okay, they do have some tougher opponents, the Knicks, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Pistons twice. Keep that in mind. They also play the Pelicans twice. That should be 2 wins. The 76ers, the Heat, the Hawks, and the Suns. And if they had Damian Lillard, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to make up that 2-game gap because as well as the Pacers are playing right now, they just, they like to not play well against bad teams. That's just the reality of it. And if they have Damian Lillard, then, I like the Bucks' chances to make up that gap. But they don't. So I don't think that they will. And they're honestly in danger of being the 6th seed. Because the Pistons are tied with the Bucks for the 5th seed. The Bucks just currently hold that head-to-head tiebreaker. And the schedule for Detroit, and why I kind of expect them to finish as the 6th seed, is their schedule is just significantly tougher than the Pacers and the Bucks. They have the second toughest strength of schedule with 9 games left to go in their season. They play the Thunder, tough game. Cavaliers, tough game. The Knicks, tough game. The Bucks, twice. The Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. All those games will not be, none of those games are easy. Their easy games are the Raptors and the Kings, and the Raptors have all of a sudden been like, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to be pests on the defensive side of the ball. So even those games, and then they're going to play the Kings who have good players between Sabonis, DeRozan, and Levine. So like those aren't even super easy games either. Now, they do play the Bucks in their final 2 games of the season, which is great for the Indiana Pacers. Because those games are really going to potentially could really, really matter for those 2 teams going into the playoffs. Because if you're, the Bucks and the Pistons, this Pacers team's good. They're fun. I love watching them play. But I do think that most teams would rather play the Pacers than the New York Knicks. And so I do believe that the Pistons and the Bucks are going to be jockeying for that 5th seed, hoping to play the Pacers as opposed to having to play the Knicks. That's going to make for an outstanding game, 81-82 between the Pistons and the Bucks. Like, do you remember a few years ago when the Brewers and the Cubs played game 163 because they were tied, and the winner of that game was going to move on and play in the playoffs, and the loser was going to go home? I think that these games could potentially have this kind of feel as they're competing for seeding. So those 2 games coming down the stretch are going to be great. I know everyone is fully tuned in to college basketball right now. Okay, so the Sweet 16. What is Coach DeVries doing in the portal? How is all of this going to look? But I just want to keep you informed on what's going on with the Pacers, and we're going to do that with Tony East. He's coming on at 11 o'clock, so here in like 6 minutes or so. I can't wait. This is a basketball fan's dream. This is the best time of the year. I've got college hoops keeping me entertained on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm watching NBA games, Lakers, Pacers tonight. Can't wait. And then once the NCAA tournament ends, we essentially roll right into the NBA playoffs. And I cannot wait. Because if you listen to the show for the last year, you know how much I love the NBA playoffs. Love March Madness as any normal person does. By the way, not upset that we don't have any double-digit seeds. Well, one, that we don't have any like mid-major schools in the Sweet 16. That's fine with me. I like watching the better teams play. I don't know about you. But I am absolutely amped up about the NBA playoffs this year because they're going to be awesome. Tony East is going to join me coming up here in about 5 minutes, and we're going to discuss the Pacers as we get closer and closer to the NBA playoffs.
NBA veteran Jim Jackson takes you on the court.
You get a chance to dig into my 14-year career in the NBA and also get the input from the people that will be joining. Charles Barkley.
I'm excited to be on your podcast, man. It's an honor.
Spike Lee, entrepreneur, filmmaker, Academy Award winner.
Nixon.
So now you see, I got you. But also how sports brings life, passion, music, all of this together.
The Jim Jackson Show, part of the Rich Eisen Podcast Network. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. I know we're very focused on the NCAA tournament, but there's no games today. Tournament starts back up tomorrow, so I wanted to take today to talk a little bit of Pacers, joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers to discuss, the 5-game win streak, their game tonight against the Lakers, and more. Tony, what's going on, man? How are you?
Maybe the least impressive 5-game win streak ever, sneaking out 3 wins in the middle of it. But I'm good. I've seen some pretty insane basketball games of late.
Yeah, it's been really weird. Like, I don't really know how else to put it. They win that game in Minnesota with only 4 starters that goes to overtime, and Obi Toppin hits that Tyrese Halliburton shot where he's fading away. And it was just, like you said, it's the worst 5-game winning streak maybe ever. But then again, is there such a thing as a bad 5-game winning streak?
Yeah, right. They'll take the results right now in the playoff chase, certainly. And look, the Minnesota win that you just brought up was actually impressive. But what they've said that is true is, in these situations that could come up in the playoffs, if it's a 5-point game with 3 minutes to go, right? Like, knowing that you have what it takes to win those games is important. And that made the second Brooklyn win matter a little bit, even though that was probably the least impressive game of the win streak. They gave up a 20-point lead in the fourth quarter. Like, they blew the lead and still closed that one out and found a way to find their fastball in the last 3 minutes. Like, that does matter somewhat. You're going to be playing better teams than the Mavericks and the Nets in the playoffs, but knowing that the required, I don't even know what the right thing, je ne sais quoi for a close game, regardless of who you're playing, that does matter, right? And they've had some not so great closes to games this season, so I do think they can take something out of that. And right, like, the winning is more important right now. They've moved up to 4th and are gripping it pretty tightly right now. So it does matter. It's a big deal, but yeah, limping across the finish line against Dallas and Brooklyn twice, maybe not exactly how they thought this week would go, even though, again, they got the correct side of the result every time.
That's right. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about just really the end of their season, because there's only 11 games left for the Pacers, 10 after tonight. I think of the 5 wins, I mean, the craziest one has to be Dallas, right? You're down by 7 with a minute left. Yeah. And you find a way to win by 4. It's just that game to me was just, I don't even have words for it. It was so great.
Yeah, the top-end shot is probably the craziest, individual one thing, obviously, right? Overtime fading like that. But yeah, down 7 with a minute to go. I thought I was going to go to ESPN's little graph thing that has predicted win odds and see the Pacers odds at 0.5% or something. That's insane. To win that game, the Pacers had to have the Mavs miss 3 free throws and have 2 turnovers just in the final minute, and the Pacers had to make every shot or free throw they took. That's crazy. That's what it took for them to win that game, and they got it. They did play well in that minute. It was embarrassing that they got to that point. They even said so themselves, they shouldn't have been in that situation. Yeah, after Max Christie got fouled, I was like, oh, it's over, right? They lost. What a disaster of a second half. They couldn't stop PJ Washington, and then somehow, some way, everything went right. They figured out how to trap in the full court, and they won. And I think the Mavs are probably kind of psyched about the result, if we're being honest. But they tripped all over themselves at the end there, and the Pacers took advantage. To their credit, the odds of that are just comically low.
They are, but hey, we're not going to complain because they currently hold a 2-game lead over the Bucks and the Pistons, who are tied, in terms of record for that 5th seed. I like the Pacers and the chances of them holding on to that 4th seed, especially with Lillard, being out indefinitely with blood clots. What do you think of the chances that the Pacers do hold on to that 4th seed?
Yeah, I think that it's very possible. I think their floor is probably 5. I don't know. I mean, I think that their most likely landing spot is now 4. I agree with you there. They don't have a lot of tough games left, right? You look at the schedule and you'll see OKC, Denver, and Cleveland twice, and those are hard games. But the Cleveland games are so late in the season, yeah. It's very possible, if not likely, that the Cavs have already clinched the number 1 seed by then and don't care about those games at all, right? So I don't know what kind of foot forward they would try to put down, but after they play the Lakers today, who are fine, they don't play anyone exceptional outside of OKC and Denver, which are 2 very hard road games, to be clear. But they could reasonably go 7-4 the rest of the way, 8-3, and if that's the case, the teams behind them, the Bucks and Pistons, would have to have an awesome close to catch them, and the Bucks and Pistons play each other the last 2 games of the season. They play each other twice, right? So I find it hard to believe that they would fall out of 5. And then you're already splitting hairs between 4 and 5 anyway. I mean, home court would be huge for the Pacers, obviously. So I think 4 is the most likely place for them to finish. The Knicks and Bucks play each other this week too, which is a big game for the Pacers' potential seeding situations. If the Knicks win that one, it becomes much harder for the Pacers to get to 3. And then there you go. It's like they're just slotted right in at 4, which I thought for a while is the best seed anyway for them to get. I think the Cavs are amazing, so maybe I'll look stupid if I say that and they end up playing Cleveland and they end up playing Cleveland. But I think that's probably the best seed for them to end up with. So I agree that's the most likely one because of the way the schedule has broken out and the way they've played since the Pacers started terrible. And if the Knicks just get a few more wins, I think we'll be talking about who the 5 seed is going to be the rest of the way.
Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about the Pacers and their potential seeding. I think the best seed for them to get is whichever one gives them home court advantage against the Pistons. That's kind of where I'm at. Cause I get it. Like Lillard's probably going to be out for a while because the blood clot thing, like that's really serious. I don't know. I think I'd rather play the Pistons than Giannis and the Bucks in the first round. Which of those matchups do you think is better for the Pacers?
Well, if Dame's not playing, the Bucks become a little more, interesting. We saw the Pacers and the injured Bucks. When do they play in the playoffs? But anyway, there's like the experience factor. I think is a thing with the Pistons, but I used to really agree with you, like thinking the Pistons were probably the easiest first round win of any of the top 6 that are going to make it. They have played 2 games in the last couple of days that have really got me thinking about the Pistons because to be clear, they played 2 bad teams. They beat New Orleans and San Antonio. Those aren't good teams. They did not have Cade for those games and played pretty well. Like moved the ball, defended, got in the open floor, made jumpers. And I was like, oh, they actually have something cooking even when he's not on the floor right now. And that made me think they could be still a really, really tough team in the playoffs. Like they have that JB Bickerstaff power and, he won around last year, albeit it was tough for that Cavs team to win. So I still probably agree with you, but if Dame's not there, I think the Bucks are probably the right team to want to play of the top 6. But Detroit, I thought for a while like you would be in the 4-5 the best for the Pacers. They went 3-1 against them this year, but maybe Cade's just awesome in the playoffs and we look stupid and have egg on our face. But I agree with you, given their lack of experience too, that'd be the one to target.
How much better would the Pistons be if Jaden Ivey was playing?
I read something about him maybe coming back. Am I crazy? But much better, right? Like they traded for Dennis Schroeder because they don't have another great ball handler. They just won a game. I just told you about those wins. They just beat San Antonio last night. Marcus Sasser had 27 points. Like that's great. You cannot expect Marcus Sasser to have 27 points every night. And Ivy was playing really well this year, right? So just having a second ball handler both with Cade and in the minutes he's not out there was so huge. I always really liked Jaden Ivey. They'd be much better if he was available.
Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. I've always liked Jaden Ivey too. I've just accepted. I'm just like this athlete snob where it's like if you're not super athletic, then I probably don't like you all that much. Purdue fans hate me for that because I don't think Braden Smith is an NBA player because he's not very athletic.
I'm starting to think he actually might be. I didn't think that until like very recently.
Make the case. Like, what is it about him that makes you think that he could play in the league?
Yeah, just now that he can shoot a little bit, like it was really one shot, which is embarrassing, right? Like he's always been the good table setter, floor general type. I agree with you. He's not athletic at all, right? No doubt. But like he against McNees, the Purdue had a couple possessions where they like couldn't quite get the shot they wanted. And he just would calmly walk to whatever spot on the 3-point line. He had a left wing fading 3 that I'm like, oh man, if he's got that good enough, not good, but good enough of a jumper, he could get a 2-way. Like he could crack the league. And, we watch the Pacers all the time. Like TJ McConnell's not athletic. Like if you're fast enough and to be a good table setter and don't mess up a lot, like you have a spot in the league. He'll have to fight to keep it. And I don't think he'll have more than a short career, but yeah, I like you did not think he was an NBA player for a while, but have very recently come around to like, okay, maybe he could do it. Maybe he could get on a roster for a year or two.
I think he's Tyler Kolek. Like you get drafted late.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
You're on this 2-way, but like in terms of him sticking, I don't know. Like you said, he hit a couple tough shots against McNeese, but he also turned it over 8 times.
The problem with a guy like him he did. The problem with that kind of player is like you want to see what they can do in the NBA, right? Like maybe their passing is just awesome. Maybe you can develop their shot. But there's a lot of them every year, right, who are like right on the fringe with that play style. So if they don't pop, that's why their career doesn't end up being very long, right? That's why McConnell's career is so impressive, and he's better than those guys, to be clear. But I think it's possible he gets a look for a year or two, like we both said, but he's got to be really good for it to turn into a full career.
Yeah, and my thing with him, it's not the offense. I think he'd be fine because, like you said, he can really shoot it. He's a really good passer. He's a really smart player. The issue is I don't think he's 6 feet tall. Like I would be really surprised, and that my concern would be, who does he guard?
Yeah, that is definitely part of the problem. And Matt Banner does a good job, like not masking, but just making it so these guys don't look so flimsy on defense. But like Carson Edwards got to the league, and it was very apparent right away that he was, not going to be there on defense, and his offense was worse, right, in the pros than it was in the college level. So there's certainly something to that. And maybe I'm too caught in the moment of Purdue playing decent basketball of late, but I didn't ever think he was an NBA player until very recently. Now I probably wouldn't draft him, but I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about Braden Smith there for like 2 minutes, but we're going to get back to the Pacers. They're playing the Lakers tonight, who are 3-7 in their last 10. LeBron hasn't been playing. That's part of that. But the glory days of that 8-game win streak when Luka showed up, those feels like that happened forever ago. What do you expect tonight from the Lakers?
Yeah, Bron's back playing, and they're still not winning, which isn't good for the Lakers. They need wins. They're 5th now in the West, I think. So they're going to be fired up, and LeBron's probable. And to insert myself into this thing that you didn't ask me to insert myself into, I always wonder, is it going to be the last time I see him in person when he comes to Indy? So I hope he plays, and I hope it's fun. But yeah, they're interesting, right? When they were really clicking after trading for Luka, like the thought of trading for Luka is, we have Luka Doncic, we're going to score a bunch. It's going to be really easy to score, and we have LeBron for when he's on the floor. And it was their defense that was like incredible, right? And they have good defensive players, but after trading away Anthony Davis, I think everybody, probably even a couple people with the Lakers, were like, how are we this good on defense? And they kept stopping everybody. And since LeBron got hurt, and I don't even know if this is necessarily correlated or it just happened to time out this way, but since LeBron got hurt, and even since his return, their defense hasn't been quite as crisp and effective. They got Rui back recently too. Maybe they'll suddenly find their gear there. But for that was what was got. I think they got as high as 3rd in the West. Maybe they got to 2nd for a day because Denver wasn't playing great either. And it's all very tight between 2 and 5. But they were really guarding, right, enough that Luka's offense and LeBron's offense and like we all watched them beat the Knicks because Gabe Vincent was good on offense and hit some threes in the game, right? Like they have just enough guys to scrape by on offense, even when Luka and LeBron aren't clicking. But when they can guard, they can beat anybody. So that's what I think will be fascinating in this game is the Lakers have size. Even without AD, they still have size on that team. And those are the kinds of teams that historically have given the Pacers the most fits, even dating back to that in-season tournament loss to the Lakers in the championship game, right? The size of the Lakers just overwhelmed them. So I think that's what this game will come down to is if the Pacers can score and neutralize the Lakers' size, force them to go small, force them to try speed, then it'll look good for the Pacers, who played their best game in a while on Monday and looked pretty nice on offense in that one. And Tyrese Halliburton's looked great, and he's going against his guy, JJ Redick. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun to see Luka and LeBron and Indy. I didn't even realize Luka on the Mavs anymore.
Yeah. Jeez. Okay. Yeah, Luka. Yeah, there's a part of me that really wants to go tonight. But at the same time, I don't know how I would handle it. There's a part of me that thinks that I would just not have a good time. I think I'd just be upset the entire time I was sitting in the stands. And my wife would be like, Jonathan, why aren't you happy? Like, we're at Cambridge. Like, Luka's right there. And I'd be like, that's the problem. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about Pacers and Lakers tonight. You can watch that game on ESPN. Tip set for 7:30. Halliburton, as you said, he's been awesome as of late. The 11-1 assist to turnover ratio since the All-Star break, and he's shooting it really well. I think he's going to make an All-NBA team, probably 3rd team. What do you think the chances are of that happening?
Yeah, he's hooping, man. It's great. Like Pat Boylan had this, their radio guy and sideline guy when they were in Indy. that when they played in Philly, he had 10 assists and 1 turnover, and it hurt his assist to turnover ratio since the break. I was like, that's insane. Like, that's just stupid. But that's the case. He's playing unreal. He's had a double-double in every game he's played since the break, except for the Memphis game where he had 9 assists. Don't know what he was thinking there. He's playing great. And some of it's his teammates making shots, which that wasn't really happening earlier in the season, but he sets up great shots, right? Like that's always possible when he's out there. And when you don't ever turn it over and you have the ball that much, and now the offense is there too. I think he's averaging 23 points a game since the All-Star break. Like, that's just an incredibly valuable player, and that's made him have an All-NBA case, right? Like, I thought pre his hip injury, which is technically 2 injuries ago now, that if he kept playing like this, he'd have a shot. And he has kept playing like this, but he also missed 6 games. I should know that, which I think does damage his case a little bit. Like, he had those 3 games in between the injuries where he was like pretty good. His numbers were there, but in general, his scoring was just kind of okay. The Pacers lost the Bucks in there and then won the other 2. So I kind of think it's just going to end up being too little too late, right? Like, he was so not himself to start the season. Like, borderline, the Pacers were doing better without him on the floor or in those first 25 games. I don't think that's actually true, but the numbers said it was true because he was really struggling to hit shots. And so, yes, he's been probably pretty easily a top 15 player since probably January 1st, honestly, maybe even a little earlier than that. But given and there's enough guys who aren't going to hit 65 games, and that'll help him. But I think he'll probably end up getting votes and getting somewhere like 19th or 18th in voting and just miss it, even though for probably over half the season, his resume will say that he was one of the 10 to 15 best players in the league.
Yeah, the reason why I think he makes it is because of that 65-game mark. I don't know if enough guys are going to hit it, which there's a part of me that's like playing more games. And there's the other part of me that's like, I still don't know if I like that rule or not.
I hate it.
Really?
Absolutely. So the intention of it was good, right? We want our players to play in games. First of all, it's a huge problem if your league has to say that out loud.
Yes.
Right? But, what they were combating or hoping to combat was the amount of rest games, just straight up rest games from players. And here's how I think they could have done that better. They have the player participation policy really enforce it. Not like, $100,000 fine. Like, the Jazz don't care about that. They're going to pay, right? Like, it's got to be, if that was strictly enforced, your stars would not rest, right? They would play if they were healthy. And then I'm sure teams would just lie and say their player has an injury. But, that would work better to me than this. This rule punishes players who are actually hurt a lot of the time, right? Like, Andrew Nembhard's not eligible for all defense this year. He's going to come up 2 games short. Yeah. If he plays every game the rest of the way. That should prevent him from having a chance. They acknowledged that he was the best defender in the Eastern Conference for a whole month. The league did, right? Like, they know he's a good defender, and they're gonna. It seems like it's punishing the wrong players, right? Like, in my head, I think that he probably gets a little too much flame here for probably something a little Clippers-y, but like, this is a Kawhi Leonard rule, right? Like, he sat out quite a bit. The Spurs were the first team to really like rest guys all the time. And look at that. They won some championships. But guys aren't resting 17 times a year, right? There are nights they sit out and they maybe could play. Don't get me wrong about that. But that's often like a team call too. So I feel like it's punishing the wrong thing. And I don't know how the answer is like play fewer games or something like that. But I don't know how they truly stop that problem. But they need to enforce the resting part of it, not the you can't have an award because you happen to get hurt for 1 too many games part. That's just dumb.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about Halliburton potentially being all NBA, why Andrew Nembhard's going to fall a little short of being all defense, because he would have been. He's been awesome this year. I read, it may have been you, someone mentioned that so in the games you play, you have to play like at least 20 minutes as well. And that's why Nembhard's going to fall short. He played 19 against the Timberwolves before he got ejected after, Rudy Gobert essentially elbowed him in the jaw. And there's another game in there that something similar happened in, right?
Yeah, he has a couple games right at 18. You get 2 exceptions where, like, if you play between 15 and 20, it still counts, right? Which is good. That's fine. But he has, I think, 5 games, maybe 4 under 20 minutes. So he has games he's played in this year that don't count. I think one of them was the game they won in overtime against Boston. I think he got hurt in that game. He only played like 5 minutes. I can't remember why he only played a few minutes in that one, right? Like that's stupid. That should count, right? And it would really suck if he was one game away and getting ejected in Minnesota was the reason he didn't get it. So I'm glad that's not the case. But the 20 minutes is part of it, and then you have the 2 exception games. Here's the other thing too: the 20 minutes part is also dumb to me because the rules that it feels like the minutes part would not matter for, right? 6th man of the year, rookie of the year, right? Those are the awards where the guys play the least minutes. Those ones don't have the 65 game rule. Everything else, like playing a lot, is like part of being good and part of being voted for. Why does there need to be another caveat on their inclusion for eligibility? It just all seems stupid to me.
I'm with you. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers. So you mentioned earlier how, the NBA fines guys like $100,000 for resting and all that kind of stuff. And it reminded me of my most radical NBA take that I actually think would be awesome if you want to hear it. I may have told you this before. So you know how they'll fine guys for flopping, but it's like $2,500. It's never anything crazy.
It happens like 1/10 as much as it should. Yeah.
I think I'm laughing because I just know how insane it is, but I really think that they should do this. I think they should suspend guys for flopping.
Oh, yes.
Because
I love it. I mean, it's so bad.
Because imagine it's, game 3 of the NBA finals and fill in the blank flops. And it's like, you can't play game 4. I bet no one would flop ever again. Like that would be it. I think that would be amazing.
I've heard people talk about like flopping needs to be called like a real foul. Like if you flop, you get a foul or a tech or something, because some of these are so bad, dude. Like I know you know this. You watch a lot of NBA. It's just like, who even? You got hit in the chest, and then 3 seconds later, you flail your head back. Like what on? It's obviously not that exaggerated, but it's bad, man. It's so bad, and it's clearly done with the intent of taking advantage of the rules. Like it's very obvious to me when that's the case. All you have to do is just make the rule harsher punishment. It drives me crazy. And then the fine is $2,500. Like that's not stopping anybody. They're gonna do it again, right? Like I'm with you. I have been thankful covering the Pacers for years. They don't really have any flop types, but there are a lot of them in the league. And hey, guess what? We might see 2 of them tonight. So we'll see if there's any. We'll see if there's any enforceable situations in Pacers Lakers.
I think Aaron Nesmith has some. He's got some like flail action from time to time.
He could win an Oscar. Yes, he's got the Actors Guild going.
But I mean, I don't mind. Like you said, if $2,500 for those guys is the equivalent to like $2.50 for us. So
that's less than a game for them.
Yeah,
it's not even close.
It's not. Yeah, that's a great point. So I just let's get rid of that. Let's change this 65 game. Look at us, Tony. We just did what every podcast in the country does when they talk about the NBA.
Now
we just fixed it.
If we tackle tanking, we've done it all. We've got the league back on track.
Tanking. I mean, I don't know. I think it makes sense to tank. I don't really mind it. It's going to help the Pacers probably grab the 4th seed, so it's fine with me.
Yes, that's true. They do play Utah and Washington, and maybe Sacramento's taking now, and a couple other teams that certainly won't want to win. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about one non-Pacers team that I've really enjoyed watching like the last 2 weeks. The Bulls are like all of a sudden just an absolute blast. How much have you watched them here as of late?
Well, they played the Pacers in that stretch, so that game, and then I watched them beat the Lakers this week, and I think it was the Jazz. I can't remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kobe White is a back-to-back East Player of the Week winner, and like people are calling. Have you seen this? People are calling their starting lineup the White lineup. It's Kobe White and 4 white players. Very funny, and it works. Like it really has been working. Josh Giddey's playing like exceptionally well and making threes. Kevin Huerter remembered how to shoot. Vucevic is playing better again. Like it's like a real. Buzelis had his career high.
Yeah.
I forget who they played.
The Lakers, because all the Lakers fans on Twitter got so upset.
That's right. Hey, 27. It's like, man, they've got something going, and I don't really know what to make of it because they tried to get worse. Right? They traded away Zach LaVine. And I guess they held on to too many guys, but. Like it's like long enough now that this is real, right? Like they've won 9 out of 11 or something like that. Like that. Yeah. That's an eighth of the season where you've been legitimately quite good, and it's not like their schedule has been a joke or anything. They're beating good teams, and Kobe White has been, again, like a top 15 player in the NBA for, 2 weeks, whatever, 20 days. Who knows how lasting any of this is, but I mean, they could get to 8. Like they could have a real plan path to the 7th seed all of a sudden. I don't think they're going to, but it's crazy. Like they've been legitimately very good for a while. The Pacers are lucky that they ducked this version of the Bulls 3 times.
Seriously. Tony, thanks for your time, man. As always, make sure you follow Tony on Twitter. He does a great job live tweeting the Pacers games. If they play deal or no deal, you're going to want to follow Tony.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure I'll talk to you tonight about Luka doing something stupid. So I'll talk to you later, man. See ya.
Yeah, man. See ya.
That is Tony East. You can check him out on Twitter at Tony R. East. Does a great job covering the Pacers. You can check out his podcast as well, Locked on Pacers. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, Purdue, Houston, Friday night, Lucas Oil. The game's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. Purdue with an advantage that I think people are talking way too much about. I don't think that this is really that impactful. I'm going to tell you what that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Big thanks to Tony East for joining the show. He's always very gracious with his time. Thanks for listening, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. You can also watch on Twitter at __ Jonathan Smith. We stream the show from my personal profile. If you want to follow me there, you can also follow the station at Ticket 1430 for all the updates, not only on my show, but also on the Dan Dockett Show coming your way today from noon to 3. Doug Gottlieb, 12:30. Andrew Dockett at 2 o'clock. Now, I think okay. Purdue is playing Houston in Indianapolis this year for the Sweet 16 game. And people are upset by this because usually, not always, usually the 1 seeds are closer to home. And people are deeming it unfair, and they're complaining about how Purdue is playing closer to home than Houston is. Here's the thing. This was going to happen to somebody. It was going to happen to somebody. Because when you look at the 4-1 seeds, they're all in the South. Houston is obviously in Houston. Florida, they're in Gainesville. Auburn, they're in Alabama. Duke, they're in North Carolina. All 4 of those teams are essentially in the Southeast. Florida, a 1 seed, is playing in San Francisco. Auburn, your number 1 overall seed, they're the team that is getting to play the close to home, as they should, because they're the number 1 overall seed. From that point forward, it's just kind of a tough break. I don't know about you, but if I'm Houston, I would rather be Houston playing in Indianapolis than Florida having to play once again in San Francisco, literally in the opposite corner of the country. And I've seen so many people complain about how this is an unfair advantage for Purdue and all that stuff. And I get it. Okay. Is it unfair? Sure. I guess. Will most people there be Purdue fans? Probably. But here's the other reality of it. They're playing in Lucas Oil Stadium. It holds 30,000 seats with the way that they're going to have the courts set up. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of Houston fans there. I'll never forget when I traveled up here for the NCAA tournaments when I was in college. This is probably 5 years ago. Jeez. I'll never forget. I ran into Houston fans all over the place. And I was here for the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 games. Houston fans all over the place. I promise you, there will be a lot of Houston fans here watching these games. I promise. Okay, will the crowd lean Purdue? Probably. But will it be enough to dictate the outcome of this game? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It will not dictate the outcome of this game. I don't expect for there to be 25,000 Purdue fans to only 5,000 Houston fans. That's not going to happen. Okay? It'll probably be like 60-40 in favor of Purdue, and that'll kind of be that. Like this is just one of those things that it's Wednesday and people are running out of things to talk about, and so they say insane things like this. Is it an advantage for Purdue? Sure. But is it some like miscarriage of justice? No, it's not. It's really not that big of a deal. What is a big deal is how the guys play the game. Purdue versus Houston. What's important? How does Purdue pull off the upset against Houston? And I do believe that upset is the proper term, because when you look at the lines, Houston is, a 7.5 point favorite. Like, that's substantial isn't the right word, but like that's a pretty heavy line given that it's a 1 and a 4 seed playing. It is the second largest line of the weekend behind, Duke and Arizona. Duke's a 9.5 point favorite. Auburn, Michigan. Auburn is a 9.5 point favorite. So third largest line of all of the Sweet 16 games. Vegas clearly really likes Houston to win that game. How does Purdue pull off the upset? I'm going to tell you how when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
JCPenney makes spring fashion look so easy. Throw on something light, bright, and extra comfy. Mix and match new arrivals from your fave brands and create affordable outfits with ease, like the perfect St. John's Bay polo paired with chinos, or a simple sweater and denim combo from A&A. Get that Liz Claiborne handbag you love, plus those cute sandals to match. For warmer nights, pick out cool, lightweight sleep sets from Umbriel. Come shop, bring the fam, and start chasing those spring vibes now. JCPenney, make it count.
Welcome to Staples.
I hear Staples prints it all for any business.
You bet, and we'll beat any print quote.
So if I had a pizza place...
Staples can print signs, menus, pizza boxes.
A landscaping business?
Oh, we can print yard signs, t-shirts, brochures.
How about a pizza/landscaping business? I'll call it Dough and Mo.
I like it.
Right now at Staples, get up to $250 off your print purchase. Ends 4/5 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for offer details. Price match guarantee valid in store and staples.com/print. Visit staples.com/price match for details.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe, be part of the chat, be part of the conversation. You can also watch the show over on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith, if you want to follow me there. Now, Purdue continues their season on Friday night here in Indianapolis, playing against Houston, the 1 seed in the Midwestern part of the bracket. People are upset. Purdue basically gets a home game. Oh, no. Who cares? I'm sorry. I just don't think that it's really going to dictate the outcome of this game all that much. Houston fans, they're going to travel. I promise they're going to be here for this game. Promise. Now, looking ahead to Friday, how is Purdue going to overcome the 7.5 points underdog that they are? And the question for me is all about the other guys around Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. We saw them show up and play well and contribute in that game against McNeese State, right? Scoring 44 points without Fletcher Loyer shooting the ball very well. How do those guys perform? Because when those guys play well, when they score the basketball, Purdue is awesome. No way around it. That's who they are. They are an awesome team. One of the best teams in the country, beyond Sweet 16 good, when Camden Heide and Miles Colvin and CJ Cox and Jakari Harris all make shots. That is that is the thing for them that allows them to potentially make the Elite Eight. Because Braden Smith could possibly struggle again against this Houston team. And I know they beat McNeese State, but he didn't play great against McNeese State. 10 points, 5 assists, 8 turnovers. It's not very good. It's not. Sorry. So can Braden Smith do a better job of handling the constant pressure that he's going to see? And then can, the other guys for Purdue show up once again? McNeese, good team. They did a good job of pressuring Braden Smith, right? Put a lot of size and length on him, and that clearly had an impact on him. Houston, they're going to be able to do the exact same thing, but better because they're better than McNeese State. They have better athletes. They have better players, all of those things. They're big as well. They've got one guard that's 6'1", LJ Cryer, who's a bucket, by the way. Every other guard for Houston, 6'3" or bigger. And that spells problems for Braden Smith. And, I've done the whole Braden Smith struggles with size thing a lot. Not going to do it again here, though. Okay? So, with that being said, I am instead going to talk about the other players, because that's really what this is going to come down to. Okay, the reason why Purdue beat McNeese State is because the other guys around Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn scored the basketball at a higher clip than they normally do. And the reason why they were able to do that is because Braden Smith demanded so much attention. Okay? They were they didn't take their eyes off of Braden Smith. Okay? It's why he only got 7 shots up in that game. Okay? And it's why CJ Cox, Miles Colvin, and all these other guys got really good looks. Okay? And those Purdue role players are going to have to make shots again against Houston if they even want to have a chance. The role guys for Purdue can make shots, and they could still lose. Wouldn't surprise me. Okay? But they're not going to beat Houston with Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith each going for 20 and 10. It's not going to happen. Houston is too good defensively. They're going to key on one of those two guys and try and take them out of the game. That's what they're going to do. Everyone at this point knows that Purdue is going to rely on Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith, and there's going to be a lot of, hey, Trey Kaufman-Renn, come set Braden Smith a screen so he can go to his right. And Houston's going to have a counter for it, like they are going to. Okay? And because of that, the role players are going to have to make shots. They did it against McNeese. Fletcher Lawyer didn't even shoot the ball well in that game. 4 of 12 from the field, 3 of 10 from 3. Okay, he's a better shooter than that. He has to be a better shooter than that for them to beat Houston. That McNeese State game felt like a nice little prerequisite to what we're going to see from this Purdue and Houston game. Houston is going to make things tough on Braden Smith, and if the role players for Purdue can relieve some of that pressure by making shots, then they'll win. Okay, Trey Kaufman-Renn, not worried about him. He's going to be a beast one way or the other. He's been one of the 5 best power forwards in college basketball all year this year, the entire year. Okay, and so he's going to do his thing. He'll probably score 20 because that's just what Trey Kaufman-Renn does. Okay, the question is, can Braden Smith not turn the ball over 8 times against the pressure that Houston's going to throw at him? Can the role players hit enough shots? And can Purdue defend LJ Cryer? Because Purdue just hasn't been a very good defensive team this year, and there's multiple reasons for that. Large part of it, they just don't have any protection at the rim. Okay, last in the Big Ten in blocks per game this season. And then you look at the perimeter of their defense, and they don't really have any great defenders. I like CJ Cox, but he's a freshman. I don't think he's a great defender quite yet. Braden Smith is a smart defender. Fletcher Lawyer is usually in the right spot. But that's, like when you're having to say that about someone's, defensive play, then you're probably not very good on the defensive side of the ball. Speaking of not being very good on the defensive side of the ball, Mackenzie Mbako has now joined, Ja'Kai Newton and Gabe Cupps and Malik Renew in the transfer portal. They will more than likely not be back playing for Indiana again next season. I don't care that Newton's leaving. It's fine. He never really played for, the Hoosiers anyway. Gabe Cupps, he was an average 3-point shooter who couldn't really do much else. Undersized. Didn't really defend. I know he didn't play much this year because he tore his meniscus, but even going back to his freshman year, shot like 36% from three. Not really a point guard, even though he's maybe 6'1". He looked like a middle schooler. That's what Gabe Cupps looked like on the court. He looked like a middle schooler trying to play college basketball. Okay? So, see you later. Sayonara. Don't need him. And Malik Reneau's gone, and I know there's going to be people who are really upset about that because for some reason Indiana fans think Malik Reneau is some stud. He's not. He's an above-average player. Okay? He can kind of score it. He can only go left. He can't really shoot. He's not a great passer. He's an okay defender. I mean, he's fine. Like, I promise, Indiana is going to be able to replace that guy pretty easily. Like, there's a million Malik Reneau's in the portal. Mackenzie Mbako, I do hate that he's leaving. I do. Because I see all the talent. I see the fact that he's 6'8", and he's got long arms, and he can really dribble the basketball, and he's a decent passer when he decides to pass. He usually doesn't. And he can shoot. And 6'8" guys that can create shots like that off the bounce just don't show up very often. And so not only has he entered the transfer portal, but he's also testing the NBA waters where he will be where he will be disappointed, excuse me. He's going to stick his toe in and be like, oh, yeah, that's cold. I'm good. Let me wait, see if we can heat the water up a little bit. Okay, he'll get drafted at some point because, as I said, 6'8" guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot just don't show up very often. So I don't think he gets drafted this year. I do think he plays college basketball somewhere. I hate that it's not going to be at Indiana, just because of the size and the shooting and the fact that, I just don't think that Mike Woodson was a very good coach in terms of just getting players to buy in terms of running good offense, in terms of a lot of things, really. And I think it just sucks that Mackenzie Mbako is going to go somewhere else, probably with a better coach, and he's going to be a really good player. And next year, we're all going to look around and be like, oh, like why wasn't Mackenzie Mbako doing that for the Hoosiers last year? And the answer is going to be because he was playing for Mike Woodson. And I really thought that there was a chance that he was going to come back, play for Coach DeVries, and be really good. Because Coach DeVries is a good coach. It's incredible. The last three coaches at Drake all have big-time jobs now. The guy who was coaching at Colorado State was the coach at Drake before that, and now he's the head coach at Minnesota. Ben McCollum took the job at Iowa. What a jump for him. Northwestern Missouri to Drake to Iowa in a 3-year span. That's wild. And, of course, Coach DeVries now at Indiana. So, anyway, as I was saying, I wouldn't have been surprised if Mackenzie Mbako had stuck around and all of a sudden been awesome next year under Coach DeVries because he is a really good coach. With that being said, Tucker DeVries is coming in. He would have taken probably a lot of those minutes from Mackenzie Mbako. But, we'll wait and see what he ends up looking like. Pacers, they're playing the Lakers tonight. Tyrese Halliburton for All-NBA. Officially, that is my stance because he's been really good. An 11-to-1 turnover to assist ratio is bizarre. Honestly, it is straight up bizarre. They're playing the Lakers tonight. That game's on ESPN 7:30, so everyone should be able to watch that game. The Pacers are 1.5-point underdog. What? That's ridiculous. That's insane. That is called the Lakers bump because there's not a planet with which the Lakers should be favored. Not saying that they will win tonight, but they should not be favored over the Indiana Pacers. I think it's ridiculous. Looking ahead to tomorrow and really Dan's show later on today, Doug Gottlieb, 12:30, and then Andrew Dockich, Illinois State playing tonight. Andrew Dockich, he'll be on the show at 2 o'clock. But tomorrow, I'm very excited for my show. But then again, I'm excited for all my shows. That's just kind of the ways that it goes. we have the Sweet 16 starting. No Cinderellas, unless you count Arkansas, but not really. They're super talented. Against Coach Cal, they're a low seed, but they're not really a Cinderella story. Okay, so we're gonna have awesome games for the entire Sweet 16. I think games are gonna rate super high because it's a lot of name brand things. It just is. Okay, Bruce Pearl, very popular character. He's playing against Dusty May in Michigan. Duke in Arizona. You got the Caleb Love playing against Duke once again. Alabama BYU is that might be the best offensive game of the year. 1 billion points are going to be scored in that game. It's going to be fantastic. Who else? Ole Miss, they're going to play Michigan State. That game's going to be incredible. That might be the best game of the Sweet 16. Kentucky's playing Tennessee again. That game is going to be fun. That game's actually here in Indianapolis. And then Arkansas, they're going to play Texas Tech on Friday night, or tomorrow night, excuse me. Go Hogs, we'll see. And then Florida, they're going to play Maryland. I think Maryland's going to give them all that they can handle and then some, because Maryland, man, they're good. That's a really good basketball team. I can't wait. So tomorrow, I'm going to get you ready for all of the Sweet 16 games. And then probably going to have my guy Zach Gray on. We'll talk gambling, the Sweet 16. He did a really good job that opening weekend. I know because he texted me quite a bit about it. So it's going to be good. So tomorrow's show going to be excellent. Dan's show today, noon to 3, is going to be excellent. A lot of hoops. Pacers, they're playing the Lakers tonight. I can't wait. I'll be tuned in, locked in, paying attention to the entire thing. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I'll be back on the air tomorrow again from 10 to noon. The Dan Dockett Show coming your way here in about 5 minutes or so. Doug Gottlieb, he's about 35 minutes away from being on your airwaves, so make sure you keep it tuned in right here to Indy Sports Ticket. Make sure you download that Indy Sports Ticket app so you can listen wherever you're at, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube as well, Indy Sports Ticket. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.